We're back with New York Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Senator, I want to talk to you about the funding for the 9/11 first responders, something you're very involved in. But first, let's talk a little bit about the news of the day. The White House, the president is not going to approve the Keystone Pipeline. What's your reaction to that?
I think that's a smart decision. I think it's the right decision. That project was going to have the United States and our communities take all the risk for a pipeline from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, which would be an export pipeline. That oil would not be for the United States. It would be for foreign purchasers such as China and other countries. So I think he made the right decision.
Supporters will say, but there were jobs that could have been made.
Right, but the real solution here is to move away from fossil fuels towards a renewable economy. We have so much opportunity in the renewable fields, whether it's wind or solar or geothermal. And frankly, when we don't invest in these renewable industries, our competitors do. China does. And when they build something, they are then better poised to do next generation innovation. We want that in America. We want made in America. And so the opportunity for us is to create those jobs through renewable industries, which is very much about our energy independence, about global climate change and clean air and clean water, and strengthening our economy for the long term.
President Obama said it might have been possible that there was a bomb on this Russian airliner that went down, perhaps a terrorist act. What do you know about that as a member of the Armed Services Committee?
Well, we have no intelligence beyond certainly what the president has. And it is interesting that UK intelligence thinks it's more likely than not that it could have been a bomb. It's a serious issue. And obviously, this issue of terrorism really weighs on the American people. So I think it's important that we fully investigate it, that we know all the answers and understand really what was at play.
If, and this is a big if, but if ISIS was involved, what does that tell you about their changing profile and the U.S. fight against ISIS?
Well, it would seem to be a change in profile. It would seem to be a different level of capacity that we've not seen in the past. And obviously that would cause grave concern for many of us who focus on national security. As a New Yorker, we are often the #1 terror target. We've been able to subvert attempts in the past. And it's very important that we do this full investigation so we are knowledgeable.
What's your feeling about the war against ISIS, particularly in Syria? The president's got 50 special operations troops in there. What did you think of that move?
Well, I think he needs an authorization from Congress. He would need, if he wants to put troops on the ground in Syria, he does not currently have an authorization to do that. And I did not support his strategy to arm the rebels. I didn't think that would work. I thought those arms would end up in the hands of ISIL. And so I was very concerned about that strategy and voted against the Armed Services Bill because of it. But I do think he needs to come back to Congress if he wants to create this new strategy of 50 advisors who will be on the ground in some missions, and I think it's important that he gets permission from Congress to do so.
What's your feeling about the underlying choice of that strategy, though?
I think I don't think it's a strategy that will work long term. I think ISIL is a grave threat to the region. It's causing extraordinary instability. I think what we could be doing more of is dealing with the humanitarian crisis. I wish we were focused on how we can create relief for millions of families that are streaming out of Syria. I've seen our European partners really pick up the pace and take significant responsibility for these families. What Germany has done is outstanding. I think America should be doing more. I know there's leaders across America who will take these families, who want to house them in their communities. And we've done it in New York State. In other instances, when we've taken refugee communities, they have been great resources and great engines for growth and entrepreneurialism. So we could do more.
Does doing more mean a no-fly zone to protect those refugees?
Well, I know that's something that the administration has been considering. No-fly zones require, if it's a humanitarian no-fly zone, they require boots on the ground. And that is not something that I support right now. It's not something that I think the American people want to see, thousands of troops in Syria. But we need to do something about the humanitarian crisis. And so I think we should be stepping up. We should be receiving more families. We should receive them before 2017. We should be doing it now. And we should be helping. I see pictures of children dying, crying, suffering, and we should be doing more.
Let me talk to you about the thing you've been working so hard on, which is getting funding for the 9/11 first responders. What's the state of the legislation and the funding for those who rushed in after the attack?
Well, it's expired, and I think it's a moral outrage that we are not standing by our first responders. These are the men and women who literally raced up towers when everyone else was coming down and did the awful and hard work of first looking for survivors and then looking for remains. And if you remember the days after 9/11, toxins were streaming out of the site, and they were breathing in these toxins for weeks and months. And unfortunately, these men are now dying. More police officers have died since 9/11 than on 9/11. Over 200 first responders have died since 9/11 from these diseases. And there are thousands that are sick. There's tens of thousands who are being treated today in every state in the country. And I think it's a moral outrage that members of Congress are not doing the right thing and standing by this. We need to reauthorize the program. It needs to be permanent. We've had this program up and running for 5 years. There's been no fraud. It's been seamless. And we've treated cancers and other diseases that are now directly caused by 9/11 toxins. It's been proven. So there's no reason that anyone should stand in the way. And if they do, they're putting politics before people. And I think it is a grave mistake to not support them.
The holdup appears to be in the House, where Chairman Goodlatte of the Judiciary Committee and others have said they don't want a new entitlement. They want to do the funding, same funding levels, same program, add in some other victims of other terrorist attacks, and make it be for 5 years so that there's a constant oversight. What's your response to that?
It's actually worse than that. They've decided arbitrarily to have a 5-year bill, and the amount of money they're spending doesn't even cover the diseases that these members of our first responders have. They want to say, we'll treat some of your cancer, but not all of your cancer. These diseases don't expire, so the health care they're provided also should not expire. They are creating an arbitrary framework that doesn't even compensate people who are eligible for compensation today. So I think it's so ill-advised. It is harmful to these families. It's going to create anxiety for them, and it lacks responsibility and shows a lack of leadership. We should be doing the right thing here, and we should be supporting these first responders. And we already have 63 co-sponsors in the Senate. That is a significant filibuster-proof majority, from the widest range of the most conservative to the most liberal supporting that bill. In the House, we have 244 House members who support the bill. So I don't believe just a handful of ultra-radical conservatives should be standing in the way of America doing the right thing. This is America's moral obligation. This is who we are as a nation. And to cut these members, shortchange them, and say we're only going to cover some of your treatments and not all your treatments, I think is outrageous.
Let me switch now to politics. What's the choice that Democratic voters have before them in the presidential race?
They have an extraordinary choice, an extraordinary opportunity. I think Hillary Clinton is the best candidate running for president right now. And the reason why I think she's the best candidate is because she shares our values, and she is going to work for everyday Americans. She supports paid leave. There's not a Republican candidate who wants to have a national paid leave program that's an earned benefit, something that you buy into your whole lifetime. She wants to do equal pay for equal work. She wants to make sure every kid in America has a chance to reach their God-given potential. And those are American values, so I think it's an opportunity.
But I guess what I mean is every Democrat looks at Bernie Sanders. He wants all those things too. In fact, he's been talking about them for 30 years, same speeches. So what if a Democrat looks at those two candidates? How are they supposed to make the choice? Well,
I think Bernie Sanders is an extraordinary public servant. I think he cares deeply about all these issues. But I support Hillary because I think she's the most qualified candidate for the presidency. I think her work as Secretary of State gave her significant dimensions on foreign and national policy. And as we just talked about this morning, we have so many urgent crises throughout the Middle East, throughout the world, and wars emerging. And she is the person who could actually be commander-in-chief to handle this in the way that I think is needed at this time in our nation. I think she is someone who cares deeply about men and women who serve this country, our families who are struggling around this country, and I think she will be the best, not only is the best candidate, but will be the best president.
Bernie Sanders said famously at the first Democratic debate, no one cares about your damn emails. Yeah. Now he has said in an interview in the Wall Street Journal that there are legitimate questions about Hillary Clinton's emails. Where do you come down on that?
Well, I think the best line of the debate was when Bernie said, nobody cares about your damn emails. And it certainly had the largest applause line. I was there and I was witnessing it. It was amazing.
But now he's saying there is worthy inquiry.
Well, maybe he has some questions. I don't know. But I think that certainly among Democrats who are going to be voting in this primary, have really heard enough about it. And I think for the Republicans, who are the ones who really started this debate, used taxpayer-funded money to have hearings that were politically motivated, I don't think they're going to be rewarded come Election Day.
Bernie Sanders has questions, though, but do you have any questions about her email?
No, I'm fully satisfied. I think Her hearing was unbelievable. To endure that many hours of questions, to ask every question ever asked, ever needed to be answered. I think she's satisfied a lot of people. She's certainly satisfied me. And I think she was an extraordinary Secretary of State.
Let me ask you about Wall Street, your constituents. In the Democratic Party, there is a big conversation about the role of Wall Street. And a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals say, we got to go right at Wall Street, both for what they do to tilt the economic field, but also because it's an important symbol. And we need, as a party, to be tough on Wall Street because it shows all across the country that we are for the 99% and not for the 1%. What do you make of that?
Well, I think there's a huge issue in the country about income inequality and lack of opportunity. And, you know, if you're talking about an inner city where it's more likely that a young African-American male is going to go to jail than graduate from college, that's a huge problem. And we have to fix that. So there's injustice throughout our economy, throughout opportunity, throughout access to education. The fact that young kids aren't getting universal pre-K in too many cities, aren't getting even universal kindergarten. Access to affordable daycare is harming our future for our children in every part of this country. So I think what drives the angst, particularly for New Yorkers that I talk to, is this lack of opportunity. And so when you want to talk about what we should do in terms of fairness and the U.S. economy, you have to drive home the fact that not everyone has the same shot, and the fact that college is too expensive, and people are being dragged down by their college loans, which are federal loans by and large. Right. And we should be making money off the back of our college students. So I think that is what drives it. And I think in terms of Wall Street and banking, the worst thing in the world for America is to have another financial collapse. So there are legitimate issues that need to be reviewed to make sure we have the right oversight and accountability over our banking institutions, to make sure the rating agencies are being held accountable for how their play in the financial collapse, to make sure we don't have too big to fail. And so what we did in Dodd-Frank was really just the first step. It wasn't everything that needed to be done. And so there's legitimate areas where we should continue as a party, as a nation, to work on stability, because we want the financial markets to always be there for us, to fund our businesses, to fund the economy. And so I think both areas, both sides of that coin are legitimate areas for debate and discussion.
Do you think there's a little overdoing it, though, in the going after Wall Street as the heart of this inequality that you described?
I think it's used as a shorthand for the larger picture. I think people will target Wall Street specifically because they're talking about income inequality, specifically because they're talking about a lack of opportunity, that we don't have paid leave in this country, that, you know, more often than not, women constantly are ramping off their careers and can't actually reach their full earning potential, creating a drag on our economy. Those are issues that trouble people. And so oftentimes it's summarized into some negative talking point about banking or Wall Street. But I think the substantive issues are very legitimate and should be debated. And we do need more reforms to continue to keep our market stable.
All right. One other question. Donald Trump. He's a constituent of yours. You think he'll get the nomination in the Republican field?
You are the pundit, not me. I have no idea.
All right. Senator Gillibrand, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.